I teach Igbo spirituality, and if this is a topic that you're interested in, hit subscribe. Now, the best way to support the channel is by joining our Patreon community at patreon.com/The Medicine Show. Patrons get access to my full research library, which has several books, articles, and first-hand accounts on Igbo spirituality. Patrons also have access to the ancestral calendar, which links to your Google Calendar, and it shows you the 4-day week and 13 moon calendar of our ancestors, and what observances was held on different moons and so forth. As I'm recording this right now, we are looking at Onwa Agun, a moon of spiritual cleansing and atonement for any wrongdoing in the previous year. And if you want to know how to celebrate that or how to go along with that, it's all there on the calendar. Patrons also have access to exclusive videos and our Odinani group chat where we get together and discuss different topics from the ancestral view. Now, if you're interested in learning the Igbo language this year, I've opened an Igbo language school at www.gedu.me. Gedu.me is the most effective Igbo language learning program in the world. And it works because we follow our ancestral method and we learn the Igbo language as our ancestors understand it, rather than a lot of these other schools that, that just kind of mimic an English language learning program because it doesn't translate well. Now, the reason I say it's the most effective language program in the world is because we have had several students that have never heard a word of Igbo, but within 3 months, they are speaking it and speaking it confidently. They can hold conversations and everything, and that's 3 months. So if you have told yourself you are going to learn the Igbo language, sign up for our upcoming session at www.gedu.me. And with that being said, let's begin.
Haki Shakur, what's going on, man?
What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, man? I'm happy
Yeah,
to finally speaking to you.
I'm trying to figure this camera out, man.
Same here, yeah. So I think this should do. Yeah, same here. So, man, wow, I'm speaking to the legend.
Nah, I should be saying that to you, man.
Been following your page for like damn near, how many years is this now? It's got to be at least 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And yeah, so man, I really like everything you're doing. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I'd be doing what you're doing. So
Yeah.
I'm happy as hell you're doing it, man. I really appreciate everything you do, man. So that's cool. So
Man,
go ahead.
I said the same about you, man. I was like, man, about time, man.
Right.
Hey, man,
Where are you based out of?
you just don't know how much you done helped me out in the last couple of years as well.
No shit.
For real.
I appreciate that, man. I see the Insibiti on the shirt at Ugo
Yeah.
Serious. Yeah.
Yeah, from Ugo.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah, that's my brother right there, man. Like he the first one that really helped me out, though. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, out of people that I met that really know what they talking about. You know what I'm saying? So I owe a lot to him too.
Cool, man. Yeah, man. If you know him, you're definitely tapped in, man. Especially if you guys are already dialoguing back and forth, man. That's dope. So, and I mean, I owe a lot to him too. He was one of the first ones really putting things out there,
Yeah.
before anybody. So yeah, he was one of the first people I saw and things like that. It made me curious. I'm like, okay, what's going on over here?
Yeah.
And so forth, yeah. So that kind of thing. So I appreciate that, man. That's dope.
Yeah.
So where are you based out of?
I'm based in Richmond, Virginia.
You're in Virginia. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's really, I don't know if it's an ancestral thing, but it always surprises me how many, I already know the history of that Virginia area as far as with Igbo people. But
Right.
man, it surprises me if you go to like my Patreon or whatever, how many people are from Virginia.
Man.
It blows my mind. And if you were to look at like the people I talk to, just as a sample size, you would think that half the Black people in America are in Virginia, North Carolina,
Yes.
and DC. And
Yep.
it's like, it makes you wonder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
It makes you wonder.
they scattered all the way to California. Like,
Yeah.
you would be surprised how many people from Virginia is in California, or their origin started like in Virginia, and they just moved out west.
Cool.
It's mind blowing. I'm talking.
Yeah, no, I don't doubt it at all. I don't doubt it at all. And it's what gets me is that how many of them are returning specifically to Igbo knowledge and culture
Yeah.
and understanding and that type of thing.
Yeah.
That's what gets me, because it's like something in you knew that one was yours. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, something in you knew that one was yours. Like I'll turn on, we'll have like a one-to-one, or not one-to-one. We have like group studies on Patreon. Everybody turns on their cameras, and I mean, they'll say, "Okay, I'm from Virginia," but like I know exactly what village you're from. You can just
Yeah.
see in people's faces and things like that, and stuff like that. So no, it always blows my mind, man. So it's one of the things that shows you that there's a lot more going on than what you're looking at, man. So
Man,
yeah.
I get that from so many people, man, from Igbo land, man. Like, soon as they see me, man, they just be like, yeah, you one of ours.
Oh yeah.
just by looking at me. Like, I'm like, for real? And they like,
Yeah.
you're
I say
one
it
of us.
all the time because we like if you grew up at home, you can tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you'll be in one place, everybody looks one way, you go another place, they look to it. Then you turn on the TV, and then all of a sudden you see somebody that's an American that looks like, oh, he's from this place. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a dead giveaway. I remember when we first came to America. I was born in America, but then like my earliest like memories are in Nigeria because we moved back real quick. But
Right.
then we came back again, and I remember when I first saw, there was two sets of people. The first was the Wayans brothers,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, get out of here!" Like we used to watch the Wayans brothers show heavy because they look like my uncles.
Yeah.
And then, you remember that movie High School High?
Yes. Yes.
Man, you know that character Ann for me?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
my cousin, bro. I wish he could come to our compound at home and look around. This is gonna sound so
Yeah.
random, but I wish he could look around because, like, man, I know, like, I
Yeah.
know where you're from. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's interesting. You just walk around and you get that, but you kind of sometimes you keep it to yourself. You start telling people that, they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" That kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, have you gone back home?
I've been there one time, but
Okay.
I was so young that I really don't even count it, because it's like
Oh, no joke.
I only have like small memories of it. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Because it was so, I think I probably was around, shit, I might have been around 10, 9, something like that. Like that.
Really?
But I can't really remember it. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Okay.
I remember vague memories of it, but I just can't, because I was so young and so much done happened since then. It's like, I mean, I don't really count it. So it's like I got to go back.
100%.
Yeah,
You
I got
went
to go
back.
back home.
Did you go back with like family or?
Yeah, with family. Yep,
Okay.
family, and other members of the movement that I'm in.
Mm.
Yeah, like the first place they would go back to Nigeria.
Okay, break down the movement because, like, I think a lot of people that are aware of my work are aware of your work, but there's some people in between that may not. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
if you could, I'm talking to Haki Shakur. I mean, it's kind of we just kind of got started, so it's whatever. But I'm talking to Haki Shakur.
Yeah, exactly.
He's gonna explain what he does better than I do. But this is one of the lead, or Haki is one of the leading scholars and activists as far as Black liberation movements, Pan-Africanism, the understanding of the African presence in the diaspora, and most specifically how Africans resisted and continue to resist systems of oppression just throughout history and in the present. So if you want to kind of just break down, the movement, who you are, and that kind of thing, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I would just get right into it. I'm Haki Shakur. I'm based in Virginia. I do a lot of work in history, as you just stated. That's my foundation. That's my beginnings. Is coming into the Black liberation movement, but specifically the New African Independence movement is where I came into this whole thing of Black liberation and Black liberation struggle, the Pan-Africanist struggle, and things of that nature. And many of these elders and individuals I came in under were individuals who were a part of the Black Panther Party. They were a part of the Black Liberation Army, but specifically the New African Independence movement, which is the independence movement for the provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. And if many people don't know what that is, the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa was founded in 1968. And it was founded by, and it's coincidental because the Republic of New Africa came into existence around the same time of the Biafra independence struggle and the Biafra resistance movement against Nigeria. So it's kind of like coincidental and ironically, because it's like, you know, you got the Igbos who are now, you know, practicing self-determination and resistance and these type of things in Nigeria. But at the same time, you got their cousins, their brothers, their sisters in North America. They're coming into political consciousness and struggling for independence and things of that nature by the foundation of the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa, which was founded by associates and friends and comrades of the Honorable Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik Shabazz. And a few of those individuals are one of them was his mentor by the name of the great Queen Mother Moore. If people don't know who that is, Queen Ali Moore. She was a Garveyite, a descendant of the Garveyites. She comes out the Marcus Garvey movement. And along with her were these individuals by the name of the Obadeli brothers, who were formerly known as the Henry brothers, but they changed their names to Amari Obadeli and Gaidi Obadeli. And in 1968, over 500 well-known freedom fighters, revolutionary nationalists, Pan-Africanists from various Black liberation movements, and even individuals from the continent who came to support this historic event that took place in Detroit in 1968. And on that day, over 100 of those individuals who participated in what they know as the Black Government Conference in Detroit in 1968, March 31st, matter of fact, they all signed this document. And this document was called the Declaration of Independence, aka the Code of Umoja. And by them signing this document, they signed into existence that we are now declaring independence from the United States of America's government, and we are now formulating our own government, our own nation. And 100 of those individuals signed that document, and now today, this is what you have over 50-something plus years later, the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa and the independence movement known as the New African Independence Movement.
Okay. What would you say like is the current status of the movement? Because like one of the things that always fascinates me is the like you can draw this like really elaborate legacy tree of Black liberation movements in, you know, so you're taking it to Malcolm. Malcolm is coming from Garvey. And then, you know, so it's that kind of thing, you know, that type of thing. So where are we at right now as far as the movement goes with the Republic of New Africa?
I would just, you know, get straight to the point of it's a terminology that we use called rebuild. It's like a real cultural saying that we use in the New African Independence, like rebuild or rebuild to win. And what we're saying by making this statement is that we know where we are today in the 21st century, and looking back at the founders and the elders and the path layers is that, and you got to understand the whole context of this period of time is like how I like to tell people is like in the 1960s, going into the 70s and the 80s, these movements were destroyed. This is how we're looking at it. These are movements that were actually attacked, what we call through low intensity and high intensity warfare and things of that nature. From what we know, J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI, and a program that they use called Cointelpro, which is called a counterintelligence program. And this was a program that was a military clandestine movement to destroy the Black liberation movement, destroy their leaders, assassinate them, incarcerate them. And what J. Edgar Hoover used in terminology is neutralize. So they wanted to neutralize this movement so that they could destroy these movements and these leaders. So now we won't have these type of movements around. And this is why you see the Black community today, the New African community today, is in so much of a destabilized situation with where we at today. But as far as the New African Independence Movement, like every other organization in that time period, it was attacked, it was destroyed. But at the same time, we had elders and freedom fighters who were incarcerated, what we know today as political prisoners, prisoners of war. And we had other offsprings and descendants of this movement who kept the movement going and trying to put it back intact and to keep it going. So we have elders who have done that through the 80s, 90s. Now where we at today in 2023, the provisional government is what we say still in a rebuilding stage, but at the same time, we're active. It's not like we disappeared. We're still out in our communities. We're still organizing these programs. The provisional government is still active. Like we hold elections. We like right now, I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs in this provisional government. So I do a lot of work with international politics and international relationships and things of that nature. So I'm the current Minister of Foreign Affairs. So the government is still intact, but I like to always tell people we're also in the rebuild stage now and repairing what happened with all those things that happened with Cointelpro.
Man, wow. So one of the things I like to try to do, and this is kind of building off of what you said, is I try to be aware. So like, for example, Cointelpro,
Right.
and you have that program, and I'm curious as to what the modern version of it looks like, right? Because everywhere you look, there's the same rebuilding thing. The Biafra movement was destroyed in the 60s as well. It's currently rebuilding. A lot of different movements, and of course, I'm gonna throw some names out. I don't know who's who, and I haven't looked too far into like the modern movements, but like New Panthers and all these different things are rebuilding. So, what do you think the modern Cointelpro looks like? Because I don't think the program has gone away.
No, and I always try to remind people of that, and like it hasn't gone anywhere. I mean, with many of these like clandestine intelligence agencies and things of that nature who operate like that to keep us oppressed, to keep us controlled and things of that nature, people got to understand that I hate to use it like this, but this is something one of my elders taught me, Haki Shakur, is that we don't like to use the terminology revolution when we're associating it with our what people call today ops or enemies or things of that nature and stuff like that. Is that we got to understand when we're going up against these type of things that we know is our enemy, and it's an intelligence agent to try to neutralize us, to destabilize us. Because people got to understand we're in a war. This is constant warfare. People don't like to look at it like that. A lot of people are in fear of that, but we got to call it for what it is. It's war. It's been over 500 years of warfare on the continent and the diaspora. But one of those things, if we're looking at it like that, in that way, is that these counterintelligence agencies, they go through revolutions too. You know what I'm saying? Like they are constantly evolving. You know what I'm saying? Even though we don't like to use that terminology associated with them, but we got to look at it for what it is. Even our enemies are going through revolutionary stages and epochs and periods of time where they're transforming their strategies, transforming their way on how they're trying to keep control and conquer our people and things of that nature. So I would say it's more, look what age we're in. We're in a technological age now where everything is based off technology. So Cointelpro is constantly in a revolution. It's constantly transforming in many ways. And I like to say some of those ways are through media, the technology, these iPhones, these media sites. A lot of these media sites are counterintelligence programs and things of that nature. And I mean across the world, like not even just in the diaspora. They're doing it in Africa too. You know what I'm saying? They're doing it to the Africans in Europe. They're doing it to the Africans in South America. No matter where we scattered at on this planet, the main thing I see going on right now is being used through the technology, the media, and things, and even the rap music. Let's not leave that out. It's in hip hop. They're using it in hip hop. They're using it in music because they already know African people in their relation to music. We're musical people. Like that's a part of our birthright, of who we are indigenously, like music. So that's one of the main aspects that they're using counterintelligence through is the music, because they know our culture and what we're into, you know what I'm saying, and things of that nature. So I would say counterintelligence has gone through a revolution like all revolutions. It's technological now.
Man, a couple times when you were talking, like a lot, I'm glad you said a lot of the things you said. And I'm going to go to the music one because my brother is a rapper.
Yeah.
and he was sent a music contract, right? He's doing pretty well for himself. He's doing very well for himself. And he was sent a contract to be on a label. And, you know, this is the contract they're sending all these kids, you know, they're not, you know, they're just spamming them out, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And so a lot of these kids don't have people that will sit down and read it for them and read it with them and talk about the point with them, that kind of thing.
Right.
And let me tell you, I don't think there's anybody in this country that's more controlled than these rappers. If you look at what's on those contracts, I'm talking about, like, I mean, I can't go into, like, I'm not going to go into full detail, but like things as crazy as, even if we drop you and you get a 9 to 5, we're entitled to your wages during the 9 to 5. If you say anything, if you say anything we disagree with, we're entitled to your wages and we're entitled to admit all these things like that. If you want to audit us, you have to audit us, give us a 90-day warning before the audit. And then on the 2 days before the 2 or 1 day before the 90th day, you have to make another appeal type of thing to make the audit valid. So it's the point where anything you're hearing them say, it's controlled. They're being told, we tell you what to post, we will post for you, we'll talk for you, we'll tell you what to say in the video. If you use your own independent, whatever, we're liable, we can fine you 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 million. No promises for money, and they're not promised to get paid, anything like that. And so, I mean, I keep this contract because it reminds me of like what's actually going on out here, right? And so if I was like, if somebody really, and then if you think about how controlled this person is and how much influence this person now comes to have, I mean, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Go ahead, man. I feel like you got something to say. And
no, I was just I would add on to that. Like, I agree 100%. It's mind blowing. Like, and this is one of the things that actually was one of my foundations when I started to do my videos and go online and try to you know, spread awareness and things of that nature. Like, even just you, like I always like to tell people, we always got to study our past, because our past is our future. You see what I'm saying? So I always like to start there. It's like, all these things are still, it's manifestations. Like I said, this constant revolution in things. It's just the extension and the revolutionary stage that is going through of slavery. You know what I'm saying? If you study plantation slavery, all these things that's going on and everything we do in America is definitely a manifestation and a continuation of that. You see what I'm saying? All the way down to the contracts, like you just said. I use that too. I said, man, if you want to get a better understanding of our reality here in America, the diaspora, study contracts, because contracts, far as America and even other places, but I'm talking about specifically America, the United States, was founded on contractual slavery. You see what I'm saying? Economic slavery. So if you go back and study these documents, even from the plantation slavery, it's the same document today. Those record company contracts and things of that nature, it's the same thing. Even the Constitution, all these things, your Social Security card, your license, all these type of things, all these things are interconnected to plantation contracts, like the sharecropping contracts from when our ancestors were so-called emancipated, and then that's when everything started to transform from the plantation slavery to the wage slavery. You see what I'm saying? This is where these contracts started to come into place and come into the picture of how this is how we're going to keep these Africans controlled. We're going to contract. You see what I'm saying? We're going to exploit them. We're going to use them, and that's where a lot of these bourgeoisie leaders and these bourgeoisie people who are doing the dirty work for white supremacy come into the picture, because it started back on those plantations.
No, it's one of the things that I've learned over the past few years is how much government funding goes into, and it's not even a hidden thing, it's not even a secret, how much government funding goes into anti-government organizations.
Yes.
You understand how many grants are issued for anti-government or government critical organizations and things like that. You'll have grants and things like that issued by major corporations for people to come and criticize corporations, things like that. It's not hidden. It's not secret. It's not even it's a Google away, right?
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. Another thing that, and even what you were saying, I remember because I'm studying the Ekumeku resistance movement in back home.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, the Ekumeku resistance movement was a union of masquerade societies
Right.
that came together to fight the British, specifically the Royal Niger Company in Igbo land, right, during colonialism. And through that, they were actually able to bankrupt the Royal Niger Company, and so the British
Yeah.
government would come in directly and that kind of thing. So I've been studying that for a while. I'm looking to make like a documentary on it, and one of the
Right.
things I saw in there was how slavery was ended in Jamaica. It's kind of interconnected, right? And it was so interesting because one of the things, because the big issue was a lot of the people that were in the British government were also slave owners in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And they're saying, "Hey, we're not letting this go. What are you talking about?" Right? And
Right.
it had gone to a point where there were so many rebellions and
Yeah.
armed violent resistances that they didn't have a choice. Their back was against the wall,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." There's a study that just recently came out that says that slaves are more productive when you call them something else, when
Yes.
you give them a wage, and when you make them feel like your success, right, the
Mhm.
success of your operation is tied to their personal success, right? So we're going to go from calling them slaves to calling them apprentices,
Yes.
and then the apprentice system goes into becoming the employment system,
Yep.
and it doesn't really reform. So I don't know. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that, but go ahead, man.
No, that makes total sense. That's what I'm saying. That's why I always try to keep those things interconnected so it won't be confused to a lot of people, because this is very elementary at the end of the day once you start to go deep down the rabbit hole. That's why I
Yeah,
always tell people, like, no, you can't forget about, because you got a lot of, folks in the African diaspora. You got a lot of Black people. They trying to forget about what happened in slavery and things of that nature. But I always like to tell them, you're doing yourself a disjustice of trying to liberate yourself to understand why you're in the conditions you are in, and how all these things are tied to how they were running things back then on the plantations, like you was just saying. All those type of things, all the way down to titles. I'm glad you even brought that up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it, even the titles, these titles that you see with corporate America, the economic industry, industrialization, all these type of things. When it comes to these titles, and you see how these titles and what they do to certain Black folk, you know what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying? How
yeah,
how it gives them this oppressors type of mentality to come into that, thinking that they're moving forward, and like you said, reform and these type of things. But at the same time, they're transforming themselves into the oppressor. You know what I'm saying? This is where you get these neo-colonialist Negro leaders from. And I'm
yeah,
talking about all the way from political daily work, all the way down to community work, all the way to everyday working job, working class, things of these nature. You see how these things and what they do to people. You see what I'm saying? Titles and things. They're enslaving you through titles too. You see what I'm saying? And they dress it up and try to make it all fancy to make it look like, or you're free. You see what I'm saying? Like, but at the same time, they're using you against your own people with these titles and things of that nature. I'm glad you brought that point up.
yeah. No, and it goes to what you said earlier. It's not, these things aren't different or new from the past. But the
No,
past, since it's the past, we can now look at it from a bird's eye view, right?
right.
So if you want to know what's going on now, you take a look at the past, then you say, okay, well, then this reformed itself and turned into this, and it reformed itself and turned into this, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden we have this exact specific situation. One of the
right.
things that I'm critical about a lot of liberation movement, I don't even wouldn't say the movements,
Mm-hmm.
um, the maybe a lot of, I don't know, liberation cultures that sometimes get stuck on the old model of racism,
Yes.
and the old model of it, a lot of it is stuck in the 60s, a lot
Yes,
of
they
it
are.
is stuck in the
They are.
40s. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so, and then they don't understand that it reforms itself. It's reforming itself. We're in a transition period right now.
Yeah. Right now.
Right? There's a narrative that's being built, and that narrative is being built for a reason. You
Exactly.
understand, right?
Exactly.
It's starting to me to look a lot more like South Africa with minority rule, and
Mm-hmm.
the mentality they have in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
The population there and that kind of thing. It's starting to look a lot more like that, right?
It is.
Where I'm the victim, right? I'm the victim, and I need to be protected from these oppressive Black people. And because of that, this is how we're gonna, that kind of thing. So, it's if you look at the past, like you said, you're gonna see the present and the future, but you get that bird's eye view. And like one of the things too, like even when you hear the story of slavery, told like in like just like the casual way, they try to tell it in a way that it's so alien from today's world that it feels like something changed. But if you zoom in, you'll just things really haven't changed that much.
Not that much.
They really haven't changed that much, man. So So anyways, let me go back and asking about the movement, because you grew up in the movement, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? Like, what was the education process for you and so forth?
It was balanced, you know what I'm saying? Because I like to always tell like how I came into the movement, how it was balanced. Because at the same time, people got to realize that you're young and you're coming up in this, but at the same time, there's elements to society that's pulling on you. You know what I'm saying? Like everyday life, you know what I'm saying? You're going out into the community, you're trying to live your life as close to normality as you can, but at the same time, you're coming up in this movement and you knowing what's right and what's wrong. But at the same time, you're living life though. So at times you're getting pulled. It's that duality. You know what I'm saying? It's that duality with life where you're getting pulled one way, you're getting pulled that way. So I always like to tell people that mine was balanced, because I came up in the street element, the street culture and things of that nature. I was running the streets with individuals and doing things that I know is straight contradiction. You know what I'm saying? Like it's contradicted to what I'm being raised in and what I believe in and things of nature. But at the same time, I always kept my mind focused on what I know is what I'm growing up in. And that's the movement. You know what I'm saying? So I still was throwing that in there too. I'm telling my friends, read this, read that. No, man, this is what's really going on, man. Like, and they seeing it, you know what I'm saying? They seeing what I'm on and stuff. So they're absorbing it at the same time. But like I said, it's this duality contradiction with reality where I'm pulled both ways and things of that nature. So I would like to say it took several key events in my life to really get me focused to say, no, go down this path of what the elders are taking you down. Because if I keep going down this path, there's only two places I'm going in the United States of America. I'm going to prison or I'm going to the graveyard. It's all, with the culture, that street culture, is only two ways you're going. You know what I'm saying? So I would say like in the late 90s going into the 2000s is where I had to re-examine things and get refocused and reset as I was going into my adulthood. And as soon as I got into my adulthood, that's when I really started to get back and get grounded in the movement and things of that nature. So it was my time to pick up that torch, that baton, you know what I'm saying, and things of that nature. But I would say that it was powerful because it kept me grounded on who I am, and it didn't take me from my destiny and my purpose, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. And without knowing too many of the details of, let's call it, your previous life, sometimes I think that's necessary. Sometimes I think you need to do that full 360 journey before it all clicks. One of the things our ancestors do is they educate by planting things in children, right? But there's an understanding that as I'm planting this in this child, the child is not wise enough to make anything of it yet. One day that thing is going to open up and they're going to be like, oh, right? And that kind of thing. So it sounds like you had a similar situation.
Yes, very, very much so. It's like, and I'm gonna go ahead and just use him for example, or one of his acronyms, for example. It's just like what Tupac said with the rose and the concrete science. It's like it's that balanced duality with, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, we know what we coming up in a dirty society. We in dirty conditions. We in the ghettos. We in the lowest class of people in this society. So it's like, I feel like, and that's why I'm thankful. I tell a lot of people, no, I'm really thankful for the 360, because I think if I'd have went the straight path, then it's got you in this stage of consciousness where you don't experience that part. So you can't really speak on it too much because you didn't even get to live that part. You see what I'm saying? Because you're coming straight up on this so disciplined way of coming up in a movement way of living and culturally way of living. It's blinding you to that part of society. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, no, I'm thankful for my 360 because it's like now I can come at y'all because I experienced both. You know what I'm saying? So I just like to use that rose from the concrete science because it makes total sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it sometimes your chi will send you on these journeys because when it's time for you to pour back into the world, you need to be able to speak people's language and eat like they do and sit like they do and talk like they do before they give you an ear. You know what I mean? I also think that, and there's this like there's this misunderstanding of street culture. Let me call it street culture, right? Because
that's what
we have elements of the same thing at home. We have it here too. It's just what it is. But there's this misunderstanding of it, and I think that there's always a time in a young man's life, right, where you're going to want to test yourself, right, based on what you understand the test to be.
Yes.
And so when I see a lot of these things, I understand. I get it. It makes sense. But sometimes there's nothing worse for a community than an untested man.
Exactly.
Right. And because even at home right now, with everything going on with the Biafra movement and so forth, the military responded by setting up checkpoints all over Igbo land, right? So you're driving, the Nigerian, what they do is you'll drive a little bit, you get stopped, you got to pay. You drive a little bit, you get stopped. We got robbed by the military at least 18 times going from Lagos to our village one year. And people were just so used to this that it's just what it was. But finally, people just said, nah. And they just started attacking the military posts. But one of the things I noticed, without saying any names, is the people that were doing the attacking were the people that, were seen as the quote unquote thugs and all that stuff prior. Now everybody's happy that they're in their community. You understand? Because once they came of age, that was their test. It's like, all right, there it is. You understand? There's an ilu that says, you don't kill a warrior in a time of peace, right? But sometimes I think that without the proper guidance, it's very, let me put it this way, this country knows that as a young man, you're going to have that interval in your life.
And they know that.
Out of its way to give you the wrong test, right? It goes out of its way to get. There's the prison pipeline. There's the drug pipeline. There's the chasing women up and down pipeline. There's a lot of the sports pipeline, right?
Can't forget that.
Let's get the biggest, fastest, strongest ones of them and just hold them over here, right? The gilded cage, right? That kind of thing. And so they understand that they dump those things on you. Even growing up in this country, I would just see it coming. You understand? Like, oh, this teacher really wants me to wrestle for some reason. I ain't never wrestled a day of my life. What's this all about? You know what I mean? And so forth. So, it's a credit to enriching your movement to go through those things and so forth. If you don't mind me asking, what was your awakening moment? When did you say, all right, let's go back?
I'm gonna tell you straight up. It was when my brother got killed in 1995. He fell victim to the street culture, the drug trade, and things of that nature. And actually, he was murdered in what was a robbery. And so that moment, it took me down. Everything you just said about what was going on in Nigeria, that was happening in its own formulation with my life at that point in time in 1995. It's like that happened. He was murdered. And then there was a couple of more friends that I grew up around me that was murdered. One of my friends was only like 14 when he got murdered. That really, it messed with me deeply. Like to see him get murdered that young, never got to live his life at no form at all. Even my brother, he was murdered at 22, 23. He didn't get to live his life and things of that nature. So now I'm getting caught up into that street culture, that street element and things of that nature. But at the same time, like you just said, things with the street culture, you got to look at it not always from a bad aspect, but like you said, it's a man getting tested in a certain way, in a certain element, because you're going to get tested. That interval is coming. You're going to get tested. And some of these street cultures and these street organizations, whether you want to call them gangs, some people call them street tribes, Crips, Bloods, any of those type of things, these are nothing but reflections of what I like to tell people. These are manifestations and things of rebellion. It's rebellious at the end of the day. It's a rebellion stage. It might not be the positive stage of rebellion that we would use to take this energy to rebel against the correct thing, which is oppression, capitalism, and things of this nature. But it's a rebellion. You can call it negative if you want to, but there's always good and negative. And there's negative, there's good, coming out of, it's negative coming out of good. It's dialectical at some point. You got to look at it through the science of dialectics on how these things work. The opposites of contradictions working in the same space at the same time. So sometimes in that negative space, you're going through that for a positive. It's going to be a positive outcome, or it could be a negative outcome. So I would say that whole dialectical dynamic of my brother being murdered and my friends and things like that being murdered is what thrust me into the consciousness, the awakening and things. My chi getting it turned on. You see what I'm saying? To come back into my chi, I had to witness these horrific things to bring me into who I am today as a new man in this world.
Yeah, it makes the problems that you're trying to address or that you're fighting to address more real, right?
Yes.
It's there's a different resolve you're gonna have if you're just reading about these things than if you live it. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, I can completely understand it from that aspect. A lot of my own drive comes from the fact that I had that very brief window at home and I saw a lot of things. I'm like, this is not right. And then I leave and it's still on my mind, like, wait, I can't just, you know what I mean? Like, we gotta fix that. What's going on over there, that kind of thing. So yeah, sometimes you need to, put your feet in it before you realize what's actually going on and so forth. So let me ask you this, because this is just I'm kind of wondering this. How can we take back that idea of the test, right? Is there a way we can create a new test for young men that is not that? Because like you said, it's interesting too, because if you look at gangs, right?
Yeah.
You look at gangs, there is within the gang, there's an obsession with the concept of justice.
Yes.
It's a group of people coming together to create their own justice, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what country you go to, it's always people that are on the fringes or the margins of justice that form these organizations. If you go to Japan, it's the Yakuza, right? Well, people think it's just Japanese people in the Yakuza. No, it's the Aniyu. Maybe I'm saying their name wrong. It's Aniyus, and it's a minority there, right? And they're an oppressed minority. And so they form this thing, and they have these tight rules and stuff like that. There's an obsession with it. But again, it's a misguided, right? It's because these are young people. Right? Their minds aren't fully formed. They don't have full perspective of the world. So, and when you go to like our ancestral cultures, you see there's these very deliberate times in a man's life where they would create a test for them. So they wouldn't go, you know what I mean? They have to go look for their own, right? Some of them are really simple. There was this one I was reading about in, what's this community? I want to see it's Abreba in Abia State. And in this community, what they did was, once you reach a certain age as a man, you have to, I believe, you have to kill a bird, some type of bird, and I can't remember what weapon it is, but it's very difficult to do. And once you do it, you're supposed to take it and go to the elders, every elder you see, and tell them, this is what I caught. And then they give you your praises. They say all these things about you. You go to the next elder, so on and so forth. And I remember I was having this conversation with somebody from that community, and it clicked. I was like, we need something like this in America. It's not going to look like that, right? Because culturally, that doesn't resonate with the people here.
Yeah, exactly.
But it has to. Do you have any ideas along those lines? Or have you thought about something along those lines? Because it's something that's been in my head.
Yeah, that's one of the most important focuses that we're trying to do with the new African independence movement. Like right now, I'm gonna give you a prime example. In Georgia, it's an organization called the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement, but they're like a extension of one of our elders organization called the New African People's Organization. And people can Google it too to see kind of like the the design and the format of what we trying to do and what they have been doing for like the last 2 decades and things of that nature, to get back to what you just was speaking on. But they have a program within the Malcolm X grassroots. It's called the New African Scouts. And the New African Scouts are between certain ages. They're part, I think it's like between, they got age groups like between like, I think like 5 and 8, and then they got like 8 to 10, and then it's like 10 to like 15 and things of that nature, where they go through this rites of passage. And what the rites of passage is basically taking from what our elders and our ancestors was doing in Africa, the indigenous peoples and ethnic groups of Africa, from various ethnic groups, whether you're Yoruba, Igbo, whatever it is. We went back and studied the elders went back and studied all those groups and studied their secret societies for men, their rites of passages for men and things of that nature. And we took those things to try to incorporate it into how we're living here in America. Because like you said, there's culturally differences and things of that nature. So we want to take that, but also put it with what we're dealing with here in the United States of America, culturally wise. So I would say that's a good example of what we're doing here in the New African Independence Movement with the New African Scouts. We got to get back to that, you know what I'm saying? Because we never had that. You see what I'm saying? Like, especially coming through the 80s and coming into the 90s, especially the 80s, though. I like to use the 80s as an example because this is the other war outside of the transatlantic slave trade. Because we like to say it's epochs. You got the transatlantic slave trade. That was the first war. Then you come into like the second epoch is where you coming out of Reconstruction, going into like Jim Crow, all the way up to the 1900s, the 1920s, where Garvey comes into the picture and try to take that back. But I like to say the third war in the epoch is the crack epidemic, the drug era in the 80s, which totally decimated our communities, totally decimated our people. And people, I don't even understand why people don't even put that era in time in the whole, like you said, this chronology of time periods of looking at how we got to where we are today in America. You have to study the crack era because that's when we really got destroyed. You know what I'm saying? And we still like all this criminality, the street trials, street organized, all that stuff morphed out of the crack epidemic. You see what I'm saying? The 80s drug trade thing. This is where all this stuff come from. But at the same time, we was missing that key element, like you just said. We never had those rites of passages like they had in Africa. We never had these ceremonies where we're taking women and men through their teenage years and things of that nature and developing them to prepare them for manhood. And women, you couldn't even call yourself a man if you didn't go through that stage. You know what I'm saying? In Africa, you had to go through that as a boy. You couldn't call yourself a man in Africa until you went through that. So that's where we went wrong at, right there. This is what happened. And even the elders who tried to do that in the 60s and 70s, because there was some elders who tried to do those rites of passage and things of that nature. But like I said, they were being attacked by Cointelpro. They're being attacked because they seen what they was trying to do. So they had to do something to destroy that so they could create this abnormal culture, this abnormal criminality, this abnormal street culture and things of that nature to make you want to gangbang. So, and even with that, a lot of these brothers, these young brothers who now become our elders, who joined the Crips or the Bloods and things of nature, they went to that looking for a rites of passage. You see what I'm saying? Because they didn't have no fathers.
Yeah,
their fathers
exactly
were in prison and things. So they and people got to realize this too. Some of the origins of some of these street organizations, they had structure at first. It's just the structure got lost during the crack era. You see what I'm saying? And things of that nature, because economics starts to play a role, because people are poor, they on crack and things of nature. So they had to turn to that, and it didn't have no structure. So I would say a solution and what we can do in 2023, I think we already got the foundation for it. Like with the stuff you just mentioned, I just think more people got to get active with it and organize and come together to try. And even, I'm going to say this, we need our elders back home to help us with that. You see what I'm saying? Our Igbo elders, all the elders from different ethnic groups who know about these rites of passages program. We need them to try to formulate a connection with our brothers and sisters, our youth, and things of that nature to develop these type of rites of passage programs. Because I feel like if they get involved, I think it'd be taken more seriously. Because right now, I don't think it's being taken seriously because we don't have that solid foundation and backing from back home from these elders who know that's the right thing to do and that's the cure for our society. We need them to get involved as well. But I would say this before I get off that topic. We do have some elders who are trying to do that with the Igbo village here in Virginia. Like, this is why we have these programs and these events every summer at the Igbo village in Northern Virginia, because they're trying to bring that aspect back. They know we need that in our society in America because it's so abnormal.
Yeah, no, one of the videos, like for my channel, one of the videos I was really happy to make was the traditional education video and the video on the Inze title system. And they're not the ones that people ask me the most about, but to me, I think they're among the most powerful and most valuable on a social level. But I think they both have things in there because even at home, we're working on reviving these things. Because when the colonists came, they saw that this was where the strength of this community was. This is what's keeping the community from looking at us, and this is, and following us. So if we chip away at these things and break them down, then all of a sudden we got them, right? I'll say this 100 times. You can see the difference between a man who went through, his, traditional rites as a man at home, and one of these like church motherfuckers. Man, you can see the difference. There's a big there's a difference. I remember. Anyways, I won't go into it. But yeah, there's a big difference, and I think again, it's necessary. It's necessary for a young man. I don't think that I think most young men will understand what I'm saying. And it'll be hard for anybody else to understand it, but just know it's important. And then as for young women as well, right? So at home, the women's institutions were targeted harder than the men's institutions because despite what they say in the West, there's no society in the world that's not controlled by the women. There's none. There's none, right? If you want to say, white men will go to the men's section of any store and go to the women's section of any store. Tell me who this society has given the access to power and money and is focusing on. You understand?
Exactly.
Right? There's hundreds. I mean, there's many different examples. That kind of thing, right? The civil rights movement. Civil rights movement wasn't about convincing white men to chill out. It was showing white women, hey, look, you don't want to be associated with this. Look what they're doing. Look what they're doing. And then when the white women said, oh no, I don't want to look like a racist, all of a sudden now we got to start signing bills and shit. You know what I mean? So, for both, not just for men, but for women as well, because that's very important. Anything you guys need as far as like knowledge or know-how or that kind of thing, I'm here. So just reach out. Anything you guys need, I'm here. So just 100%, I'm with that. I'm fully in support. So let me ask you then. I don't want to hold you up too much, but I'm really having fun with this conversation. What's the vision for the Republic of New Africa? What are we looking at as far as government structures and differences and similarities to maybe the system that we're living in currently?
The goal is to, what it was basically founded for. It was founded to bring this type of structure to our people. And this, I like to put it like this. With everything that's going on right now within America with our people and things of that nature, the Republic of New Africa is trying to rebuild and show people, now here's another way or a choice we can go. You know what I'm saying? And it's not a new choice. This is a choice that's been around ever since our ancestors was denied the right. See, this is what people got to understand. When they was coming out in 1865, when when the Civil War ended, so-called ended, the Civil War ended between the North and the South. People got to understand, it's a key thing that happened during that period of time. Okay, if you say you so-called emancipated the people, or you so-called said you free the people, now this is the thing where it went wrong at. Why wasn't these ancestors given choices on their destiny, and where they wanted to go? See, this is where everything went wrong at, right here. They wasn't never given the choice on what they wanted to do when Abraham Lincoln and all of them came in with this so-called Emancipation Proclamation and all these type of things. They didn't ask them, what do y'all want? This is the key thing that's left out in history. You know what I'm saying? It's like, y'all are skipping a big part of where everything went wrong with us in America. Yeah. They were never given the choice on what they wanted to do. They had logical choices. What were the logical choices? The logical choices were, you have a right to become American citizen. We're not denying that. You know what I'm saying? Even though we know that's a false. You know what I'm saying? That's a colonial settler nation. That's a false. But if we're looking at it from a logical perspective, you do have a choice to become American. But they still didn't even ask them that. They forced them to become that. They didn't even ask them, do you want to be an American citizen? Y'all can vote on this. Where's the plebiscite? Where's the referendum or something like that to vote on what y'all choices and things do? Yeah. And they did have a semi-plebiscite in Georgia and Savannah, Georgia. If people don't know, this is where the Special Field Order 15 and all these type of things come from, the 40 acres and the mule, where they did gather up some black leaders and ask the black leaders what they wanted. And the first thing that came out these black leaders' mouth was, we want land. We want land to our own, so we can establish our own government on this land out of the South in Savannah, Georgia. This is what these leaders said back then when they asked them what y'all wanted. But this was only a small group. This wasn't the majority of black people in America that you asking this choice to. This was only like a certain segment in Savannah, Georgia that they asked us to. But their same answer was, I want land. That was the first thing that came out their mouth. I want land. And we already knew what they was going to do with that land. They was going to establish their own government on it because they didn't want to integrate with white folk.
Well, it's not imaginable. You gotta go. It's not imaginable. Oh, that's just knowing, because it was, you know, this thing we're calling white supremacy, it was naked and open to them. So it's like, oh, that's not even a thing, right? That's not, it's like, oh, okay, what do you want to do with this cobra in your living room? Like, oh, maybe we'll become friends. That's not even an option. Like, I'm not even thinking about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Go ahead, man.
No, for real though, I'm glad you said that, because it's like, because they try to make our ancestors seem like they were so not intelligent when they talk about slavery. You see what I'm saying? Like, oh, they wasn't aware. How wasn't they aware of these things when y'all kidnapped them from this type of thing they already had? This is what they was already doing in Africa. They were already separate people and governing themselves. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, logically in their mind, you think they forgot this? You think they don't know how life goes and how society goes? So it's logical that they first came out and said, no, I want my own land. You see what I'm saying? We want our own land so we can have our Africa back that you took from us. You see what I'm saying? So, but overall, the majority of these enslaved peoples didn't get that right to do that. You see what I'm saying? So the Republic of New Africa, they dissected all that. They went back to the past. They looked at all that. And then Amari Obadeli and Queen Mother Moore and all these great individuals, they brought that back. But they brought it back into this time period to see it from what's going on right now. We got to address this, what we're going through right now and things of that nature. And even now in 2023, it's the same logical thing. We want to rebuild the government to push forward this step. And this logical step is, we want a plebiscite to determine what we want to do as a people, because we never got that choice. So that's a major agenda. We want to politically educate people on this type of thinking, this type of consciousness of showing them, no, this is a part of our reality. This is something that's been going on for centuries, or how people are establishing their own government, their own nations, and things of that nature. It's going on in Africa right now. You see what I'm saying? It's going on across, where oppressed people are saying, this is the direction we want to go in. So this is where the Republic of New Africa is today, saying the same thing, but trying to put it in a more modern terminology a modern terminology to deal with the conditions we're going through right now, is that, hey, look here, we got a solution that's still viable to us right now. This is a way we can go right now. If y'all really truly want to stop police from killing us, poor housing, you know what I'm saying, bad food, the black on black crime, if you want to use that terminology, all these abnormal things that come with being in America and still being a second-class citizen or oppressed people and things like that. Here's a viable solution right now. The Republic of New Africa is trying to tell you, let's get together, hold a plebiscite, and let's see what our people want to do. Nationhood, do you want to go back home? That's another option. Do you want to go back to Africa? Because we got that right too. Do you want to remain Americans? That's your choice if you want to still be with these oppressors. You got that right. You see what I'm saying? But we believe, the majority of us right now, because so many people moving back to the South, our national territory, the Republic of New Africa, is the South, 5 southern states. We're looking at it from the aspect of, we believe that it's already happening, and we believe that our people want statehood, nationhood. That's where we at today.
Yeah, that's powerful. So let me ask this, because when it comes to any population, right, there's a diversity of ideas, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different people that are looking for a solution, that are looking for they have sometimes radically different ideas, sometimes similar ideas, but for some reason they're not coming together, that kind of thing. Is a unity necessary between those groups, all these different ideological groups? You know, like NOI has a vision that maybe the Hebrew Israelites don't have, Pan-African and so forth. So what's the how's that dealt with in order to move forward?
I look at it like this, is that if we really want to get to a point of where we at in America that's productive, I believe there's a certain unity that has to take place to deal with the solution, to deal with the question on what we want to do and where we want to go as a people here in America. It's going to have to come to that point, you know what I'm saying, where we have to come together in a unified front to get to the nitty-gritty of it all and ask our people what we want to do, man, what we really want to do, what y'all want to do to deal with this situation, man. Because at this point, ain't nothing getting done at this point right now, because so many people got so many ideologies, so many people want to be this, they want to go this direct. Put it like this, everybody think they got the right ideology. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's your opinion at the end of the day. But I like to be practical. Nothing gets solved without being practical. And the practical thing is, look here, man, y'all gonna have to put all y'all little debates, ideologies and disagreements with those type of things to the side for a moment, so we can deal with the question, what do we want to do and where we want to go? In order for that to happen, we're going to have some kind of unity at some point. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, this is what I always tell people, then after that, then y'all can do what y'all got to do as far as y'all own separate ideology and things of that nature. Because at the same time, we're all struggling for the same thing at the end of the day. We're trying to fix the issue, the problems, and go in the right direction that's not only beneficial to our people in this country, but the global community. This is a global thing too. This ain't just about so-called African Americans or the so-called Black people. This ain't just about us. It's a global problem too. It's a global thing. How do we want to be seen in the world? How do we want to we want to be the models of a better world? You see what I'm saying? And things of that nature, because we know these things are correct. What the United States of America doing and the Western people doing is that's not how we want to go. That's not how we want to live. That's not how we want to be. We want to be the models of transforming the global world community into a better place for all humanity, not just African Americans and things of that nature. So unity is necessary. I just put it to you like that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you know, I do wonder what it would specifically take to make that unity happen, if that's the way. If maybe just one group has to just achieve more than the others. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's whoever's ahead in the race that people will then say, okay, they know what they're doing, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I do wonder, that particular thing, because it's tough and people are really locked into their ideologies, right?
yes,
I try not to get into ideology because I know that it's a layer of understanding, but there's a layer above that, right? Where
exactly.
you have to have an idea, you have to come from somewhere, right? You're always going to have an ideology, but
Yeah,
you can't be so dominated by it that you can't cooperate with other human beings.
bingo, bingo,
I
bingo,
mean,
and that's one of the core principles of the New African Independence movement. These elders, when they came up with this movement, that was the core thing that they focused on from the get-go. Because you got to remember, when the Republic of New Africa came into existence, you had other Black liberation movements, different ideologies and things. You had the Black Panther Party. You had all these other different type of NOI was still around at that point too. So you had all these type of organizations around at that point in time too. But when the New African Independence movement formed, they came straight out the gate and they studied it from the get-go. It's like, we can't let ideology over succeed what we're trying to do as a collective people. You see what I'm saying? We can't be blinded by that, because as soon as you get blinded by that, there's no way we're going to make no type of productive move forward. And that's why we still in this stagnant state right now, is because other movements with these other ideologies, they're not, you know what I'm saying, looking at it from a bigger, ideology, or however you want to state that. They're not looking at it from another angle. They're still stuck in their ideologies. And see, the New African Independence movement, we never got caught up into that. You know what I'm saying? Of course, we had our little eternal things going on at some point in time, but we never let that succeed what we're trying to do, though, with unifying people and getting to the solution of where we're trying to go as a people.
Yeah, well, there's something very un-African about it, right? It's a
Yes,
very European
yes,
way of thinking. It's a very
yes,
European way that I believe this thing and my brother believes this thing, so now we're two different people, right? Right?
crazy.
So he's a Calvinist. I'm a damn Lutheran or whatever. You know what I mean? When you see the patterns of it and you
Yeah,
look around, you're like, oh, that's where I came from. Okay,
yeah,
there it is. That's his grandfather over there. It's funny too, because in the Igbo language, um, emotions and opinions are the same thing.
right, right.
Emotions and opinions are the same thing. So, for example, now, if I were to say, I'm going to say it in English the way it would be said in Igbo. If I
Okay,
were to say, I feel like well, I'm trying to think of something. Okay, if I were to feel like, I say, I, I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of an example, man.
yeah,
Just an opinion. Okay, I believe in abortion, right? If I
yeah,
were to say I believe in abortion in Igbo, I would say something like, literally translated in English. I says, my mind says I agree with abortion, or my heart says I agree with abortion. That's
right,
also the same way you would say an emotion, right?
yeah,
My heart tells me this thing is hurting me. My
exactly,
mind says this thing is bad. There's no distinction.
right,
Like I have an Igbo language school, and so one of the things that I always tell people is, if you want to learn a language, learn how to give an instruction in that language, learn how to give information in that language, and learn how to express an emotion. If you do those three things, you can speak the language. That's it. You
yeah,
understand?
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
complicated. And so the emotion part with Igbo, when you get to that part, you realize that there's absolutely no difference between saying your ideology and saying your emotion. It's the exact
right,
same thing, right? And so in that culture, you never get a point. I mean, now with all these, like, this Christian shit going on, but
yeah,
you never get to a point where it's like, oh, I can't sit that, or like, yeah, that's my brother, but they believe in this. That sounds
yeah,
crazy. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, it doesn't even make sense. That's like me saying, yeah, that's we're friends, but he's happy right now, so I can't talk to him. It's the
right,
same thing. You know what I mean?
yep,
So when you see that, you just know where it comes from. That's that Crusades mentality. That's that.
yeah.
These are the Muslims. These are the Jews. Now we got to fight. You just know where that comes from.
Yeah,
Right?
that's just a example of European nations and the European history. You see what I'm saying? That's where that stuff come from. All
Yeah.
these type of things, and I can't sit with that person. All that shit comes out of Europe.
Yeah. So, so Haki won there. let me send you off. Is there, for those who want to support the New Africa movement, for those who want to connect more with what you're doing, what's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, anything pertaining to like the Republic of New Africa, you can go to the website, pgrna.com, and they got everything, the history, the chronology, how you can get involved, how you can support, how you, if you want to become a citizen of the Republic of New Africa, there's ways you can become a part of that as well. All these things is on the pgrna.com website. And they have Instagram pages, Twitter pages, under PGRNA. You can find us on these websites, these pages and things of nature, and just inboxes, questions or anything if you want to know about the history of the Republic of New Africa and things of that nature. And everybody can just find me on every social media site under Haki Shakur. Just Google my name, you'll see all my websites that come up, my link tree, all those type of things, YouTube channel. My website is newafrican77 .wordpress.com. You can find a lot of my stuff on there about the New African Independence Movement, Igbo history, any type of thing. Anybody like that's in the African diaspora in America, and you're coming back into Igbo culture, Igbo tradition, and things of that nature, because people know me from that. That's a lot of a part of the stuff I do as well with my historian work, is trying to get brothers and sisters who are trying to find their way back to Igbo culture and things of that nature, Igbo spirituality, spiritual science. I got tons of that stuff on my website as well, my YouTube channel, and things. Yeah, if y'all want to build, just holler at me, and we can get back into this Igbo culture together.
Yeah, I got so into your liberation work that I didn't even talk about the spirituality. So maybe the next time around we can do that.
I definitely want to get into that, man. Like, so people can, because I ain't gonna lie, a lot of people been requesting that too. They've been hitting me up like, man, when you gonna get with the medicine shell guy or Ugo, man, and y'all do something about spirituality, Evo spirituality. I said, man, it's gonna happen at the divine time, man. It's gonna happen, man. Like, I really want to do it, so we can show people, coming from both angles, whether you are African American or you Igbo, straight from Igbo land in Nigeria, and so we can just discuss it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let me do this, right? Because I